Hello, and welcome back to Undercurrent, the podcast where we explore the hidden forces beneath transformation. I am Mehtap Arslan. Over the last few episodes, we have explored some of the things organizations often take for granted during transformation. We assume that understanding creates change. We sometimes assume that training creates adoption. We assume that managers will somehow carry the transformation through the organization. But again and again, we see that reality is more complicated. Today, I'd like to explore another assumption with you. The assumption that once a change is launched, the hard part is over. But what if that's exactly where the hard part begins? Let's think about a typical transformation. A strategy is defined, the business case is approved, communication goes out, training is delivered, the system goes live, and the project is complete. Everyone takes a breath, maybe even celebrates. Then 6 months later, what happened? The process exists, but people are not always using it. The system is live, but old workarounds keep showing up. The training happened, but confidence still feels inconsistent. The project was completed. The change was not. And I think we have all seen this before, not only at work, in our personal lives too. Just think about exercise. Most of us have joined a gym at some point. We buy the membership, buy the shoes, maybe even create a workout plan. For a few weeks, we are motivated. Everything feels promising. But then work gets busy, we travel, life happens, and gradually we stop. Not because we don't understand the benefits. We do. Not because we don't know what to do. We do. The real challenge was never joining the gym. The real challenge was making exercise part of everyday life. Making it a routine. Something we do without constantly negotiating with ourselves. At some point, it stops being something new we are trying and becomes part of who we are. And that's what real change looks like. Organizations face exactly the same challenge. Don't get me wrong, communication matters. Of course, training matters. Leadership support matters. They're all important. They're all necessary. But they introduce change. They don't automatically embed it. And that's where many transformations begin to struggle. Because introducing change and embedding change are two very different things. Introducing change is an event. Embedding change is a process. One has a launch date, the other doesn't. One happens through project plans, the other happens through everyday behavior. And embedding takes longer than most organizations expect. It happens even when people continue using the new process after the project team leaves. When managers continue reinforcing new behaviors after the communication campaign ends. When employees choose the new way of working even when nobody is watching. That's when change starts becoming real. And that requires repetition, practice, reinforcement, support, and enough space for people to integrate the change into their daily reality. Because transformation isn't happening in isolation. People are still serving customers. They are still managing teams, meeting deadlines, delivering results. The change is happening on top of everything else they already have to do. And this is where organizations often make a mistake. They assume that because the launch was successful, the hardest part is over. In reality, hardest part may only be beginning. Because this is the stage where people have to stop thinking about the change and start living it. Where a new process stops being something we were trained on and starts becoming how we actually work. Where something new slowly becomes normal. Looking back, I think many organizations celebrate implementation when they should still be supporting embedding. They move attention elsewhere too quickly, they remove support too early, and they assume adoption is further along than it really is. Then slowly, the change begins to weaken. Not because people rejected it, not because the strategy was wrong, but because it never had the opportunity to become fully embedded. Perhaps one of the most important questions leaders can ask is not, did we launch successfully? But has the change become part of everyday work? Because implementation introduces change. Embedding makes it real. And until change becomes embedded, its value remains uncertain. The transformation may be complete on paper, but not yet complete in practice. In our next episode, we will explore another pattern many organizations experience: why transformations often lose momentum after the launch, and what happens when support is withdrawn before new behaviors have had a chance to become normal. Thank you for listening to Undercurrent. And remember, the project may be complete, the change may still be taking root.